better say. We're based in Houston, but we wanted to come 250 miles to hang out with you to be your favorite bookstore, because some bookstores take a book, shut it, and stick it on the shelf. We take it off that shelf, we open it up, and we go to the people. This is the 5th city on a 5-city tour for the book DETAINED. We kicked it off in Houston. We kicked it off in San Antonio on May 15th. So with the San Antonio, Austin, Houston, and Paso, and this is a culmination in Dallas today. So we did it. The best class. But you know what is beautiful? The Oak Cliff Cultural Center is gorgeous. I think I'll buy up most of these. Let's keep that around. One thing I'll tell you is that folks forget how big Texas is. Driving from Houston to Paso, so Texas is big. I know some folks that were visiting Europe, and it takes them longer to get from one country to the other than it does to get from one side of Texas to the other. Okay, so we're still in the same state, right? I tell you that, man, because sometimes in Houston, you don't really know what's going on in Paso, San Antonio, Dallas. So I want you to know that this is really fantastic. It really is nice. In Houston, obviously we have cultural centers. Now I'm going to give a shout out to MECA, Multicultural Education Council for the Arts. That was founded by Anna Valdez over 40 years ago. She just retired. That's a 100-year-old former school down in Memphis. So you can imagine all the challenges of refurbishing a 100-year-old building. It's a legacy institution, but it's not brand new. Talento Houston is a very nice theater. It's owned by the city. So I would say that this is a really fantastic place to have book events like this, or just some beautiful visual art exhibit. If you haven't seen that, please make sure you get a chance to see that. And I know they have events throughout here on the list. I really think that's exciting. So I think maybe sometimes in a long time we take for granted what we had. The Oak Cliff Cultural Center really packs a punch. We're doing a lot of great work. Truly our pleasure and honor to be here. And we hope that we can keep coming back, coming up with reasons to go back and forth in the city. I'm kind of giving an overview of what we're doing today. We are on the live stream, so if your friends can't make it today, you can go to the Nuestra Palabra Facebook page, also our YouTube page. The YouTube page is more for archives, right? So there we save videos so we can kind of pass them on social media quickly. We also use them for classrooms. So in the future, this will wind up a college course, a community course, sometimes high school, and teaching who are further. The book you're about to hear about is going to be implemented in schools, and I'll give you some information about that. But yes, isn't that great? Because we need it, right? And a little later too, I think we're on the same page. We're talking questions. We'd love to hear you give your insights on what's going on here, just so that we can trade information, keep the dialogue going. You can tell other instructors, well, look, here's an institution that used the book in classes. And again, so our live stream is for folks that couldn't get here today, teachers that want to refer to it. And also on the Facebook page, that's what we share a lot. We put that in a lot of different groups, etc. But the goal really is to make sure that we can share this information later on. So we've got a lot of events to figure out here for. We have a live stream going on. And then today you can hear from your friends of mine. You can hear from my dear friend, Tammy, who she'll be out there. Let's bring up water. Let's bring up water. I've had the pleasure of knowing Tammy for several years. When Nuestra Palabra just started. Our group started in 1998, so we just turned 27. And I got to meet her at the San Antonio International Book Festival years ago. Just reminding you how all these Texas cities need to work together. We used to have that international book fair. that's where I met her, Javier Casa, and other writers. And we were fast friends. She was performing with a band without poetry. So she was so kind as to be come and present today, which is a huge honor and favor for us. Then we did for Rodrigo, he's so much behind the scenes. He does so much work for us behind the scenes that a lot of times he doesn't come out from the camera, so we wanted him to talk about what influenced him to embrace the book. So our crew got against him as a book, and we loved it. We really loved it. It's so powerful. And it's so appropriate for this moment, especially what we're going through. And they got it right in. And then, of course, we're going to be looking forward to having and introducing you to the co-author of DETAINED. We're going to pre-applaud him as well. He's with us now. I'm going to have to say that. He said that Gerardo Morales. He's the co-author of the book. And of course, Esperanza is the author of the book. You're going to find out a little bit later that this is his pen name. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But that's one of the major issues essential to this book as well. And then we'll have a chance for some Q&A. So if we get your questions ready. A lot of cool things are happening too. So we're going to tell you 2 events. Because when we go to the city, we're going to have a lot of fun. So tomorrow, from 5 p.m. to 8:30, Texas Monthly is holding its first annual Taco Fest at Epic Central Park. Did you know about it? Oh, some did, right? And because we're all friends now, friends like this. Thank you very much. What we said is we want to let people know what's going on. Additionally, for folks who purchase a copy of DETAINED tonight, or any book, in fact, check out the books that I'm talking about, you will get a raffle. We put it in a drawing, and we're going to raffle 2 pairs. So one person gets 2 tickets, another person gets 2 tickets of passes. So one person gets 2 passes for the Taco Fest tomorrow. That's a $50 value for you. So 2 of y'all can walk out with those passes. And we also have a little discount code for you tomorrow. Let me tell you a little bit more about tomorrow's school event. Because y'all can say, what are the writers doing with the gifts? Right? Aren't you supposed to be fancy? We're supposed to do some libraries. So we're in everybody's business, right? We're like, there's people how do we get out there? It's a cool part of the world. How do we get in there? How do we get the folks? So it turns out, if you can believe this or not, more people like apples than books. Mind blowing. Well, when we figured out this essential fact, we're like, well, how do we get out with all the books and add factors too? It's a delicious genre of food. Well, here's how to explain that wonderful combination. So one of the other books we have with us today is American Tacos, a history guide. It's actually by someone that lives here in town, Jose. He is the Texas Monthly taco editor. Cool job or what? The next time you hear some young kid wants to be an English major, someone tells them, don't take that job, no, there's no jobs. They might want to be the taco editor for another major publication. He has this fantastic book. Last year, when the revised edition came out, Nuestra Palabra came out with him, and Rodrigo brought that embedded in his tour. We designed it, and we went to several cities with him, just like we're doing right now. This is a little big production we practiced last year. So what does that mean? That means, as Nuestra Palabra turns 27, don't get me wrong, I can be fancy. We do readings at the Alley Theater, the Museum of Fine Arts Houston. If someone wants to throw down with fancy rhetorical terms, I will run circles around them. And I'm sorry, but I'm good at it. Why? I was translated for adults since I was a kid. Spanish was my first language. I got pretty good at English. So what does that mean? That means I know all those fancy terms at the university quick. writing. I hung out at the University of Houston's Great Writing Program. I hung out in the Ivory Tower. I learned all the code words. My point is that if I gotta get fancy with someone, I can get fancy. But sometimes it gets boring. For this tour, we got to hang out at taco joints, ink parlors. I did not get attention. Beer joints. Yes, I had a couple of cervezas. Exactly. And the goal is we go where the people are. That's our goal. Our goal is to make sure that our community has access to its terms on its terms. In an era where representation is difficult, or we're going to make it easy for everything. You know, I'm glad some of the snuck folks, you know, I'm glad snuck folks, that's awesome. Because we want them to grow up thinking, when they see one else, I wonder if there's poetry or fiction. Right? I want to know what books they got in the library. I want them to walk a little bit up. Right? That's what we're putting out together. Because here's the bad news. We have to do this. Because as you know, here in Texas, even though these beautiful books will always be the front lines of the battle, it's left with freedom. It is now a censorship culture here in Texas. As Librotraficantes, we call that, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Now, we are bookmongers too. We start underground libraries too. And this day and age in Texas, before you leave, I hope you make a commitment. You can tell me the secret of your underground libraries. We need to stop family libraries. We started overgrown libraries. What does that mean? I'm not getting into all the laws, some of which you've heard about, some of which are deciding nominal librarians and teachers for bringing these books to our students. Some of it is defunding. When I was the age of some of the young people in this room, I never imagined Texas was entertained as just a federal to meet budget deficits by defunding libraries. In Houston, Texas, 17 school districts overlap the city. Several of them do not have librarians on staff. Spring Branch Independent School District, majority Latino, doesn't have a functioning library. I haven't checked recently, I hope that's been fixed. Houston Independent School District, the largest school district in Texas, they close the library during the day and they make it a source for punishment. The students that have disciplinary issues are sent to the library. Okay? What message does it send? What sense does it make, right? And what does it mean? It means if your parents pick you up and never work on this, if the only time you have to go to the library is during the day, that's been closed. So I'm talking about that because we're in a way of censorship culture. However, I didn't come here to oppress you. I came here for us to fire each other up. And what that means is that we have the power. When we read the headlines, we may think that we're powerless. We may think that we're outnumbered. When we get together like this, oh, it's exciting. And we say, you know what? We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. The rights we have now are people did not have in the 70s. They have a fight for every inch of nail. They fought so that I could become that first to never get a master's degree in writing in 1995. Right? There are forces that are trying to claw that back. But here's the difference. You know, the difference is that now there's much of us. We got through that. My dear friend Roberto Lozano, this is Esperanza. It's great to see you both. Thank you. And then round of applause for my dear friends. Dear friends that led the way to next market studies in the state. We're fighting for next market studies. We convene, get together and push. What We're going to take matters into our own hands in a beautiful way. So tonight you're going to meet friends. You're going to meet some of the leading writers. And we're going to make sure that we unite to stop underground libraries, overgrown libraries, family libraries, and someone here in the room is going to help us make sure we get the classroom set up. Detained to classrooms in Houston. There's a high school. We met a high school teacher in Paso who said, I need a classroom set so I can lead a leadership class and make it part of the curriculum. I said, we got you. We got your back. So I know it's slowly going to help on that as well. As we get ready for Tammy to present some poetry, I just want to give you a quick rundown of some of the books we'll be talking about today. This is my book. My book is called The Untitled Chapter, Culminated Community Function Capital. That's me angry. I'm a pyramid in the sunstone. And someone asked me, "Why are you so mad?" I was mad because when I got to the pyramid, I realized that I was brainwashed. I'm like, I was convinced my kid did not embrace literature, did not have a voice, until I went to Mexico and sat on the evidence. I sat on that pyramid and said, I'm sitting on the evidence about brilliance in architecture, astronomy, arts, construction, running governance, semantics, everything. And I said, never again, never again. And I talked a little bit about, this is our last slide, I don't want to let you know, I want to remind folks, in 1998, Arizona legislature banned American studies. And it was in the news that we became book smugglers, a lot of Librotraficantes, and some people lead book smugglers. Right. We united in Houston, we created a caravan to go from Houston back to Tucson to smuggle the prohibited books back into Tucson, but gain attention to the Chicano high school students who sued Arizona and won. Well, let's applaud those young folks. We weren't the heroes, those students were the heroes, and they hung in there. And they won. I bring that up because in our lifetime, our culture was banned. The youth stood up, and they overturned that law. So that's just one challenge that we face that gets embraced by mainstream media. I talked a little about organizing the content, but you don't even look like because you're the organizers here. You are living what that is, right? That's one thing. I mentioned the American topics and history guy. So tomorrow the topic, again, we don't work just for random. Don't get me wrong. Just give away topics and make them. That's a great art form. But we're going to be complicated. So we set it up, name 50 top doctors of the state. If you got beef with him, you can be here tomorrow. Like, how come these doctors didn't make the list? And now so there are 50 top tacos as named by Texas Monkeys taco restaurants. 15 of them will be at the Taco Fest tomorrow. Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good tomorrow, okay? Whether you no matter how much you got, that's cool. Maybe you should have made it. You can talk about it. And it can be upset. But that's his book as well. I say that too because the taco is a culinary art. The taqueros are chefs. They don't really call chefs. But our here today, when we create this beautiful art, people will be consuming it. So even folks that don't like, say they don't like us, or they don't like the mole, they don't like comida. Sorry, you like the people that come with it. Okay? Of course, tonight, you're going to hear from the co-author of the book, Detained, A Boyish Girl's Survival and Resilience. The author is Esperanza. I'm not going to say my name is founder, I'm just giving you the overview. If you're also folks that are watching on the live stream, if you're tuning in right now, they need to call their friends and say, tune in now. Go to Nuestra Palabra, get your sign copy of the book. Esperanza was detained as a teen. Some of the young folks in here were his age when they were detained, when he was detained in an immigration camp outside of El Paso, Tornillo, Texas. We've traveled hundreds of miles to hang out with you. Kansas, but it was beautiful. Rodrigo, Clarissa, and I, Richie brothers were citizens. We took the boat back to where he was detained, and we liberated the boat because we got citizenship privilege. He was brave. He was bullied by the cops. This is funded by U.S. funds. He snuck in a notebook. He wrote his story. He was brave. And then when you read the first pages, I'm not going to read anything for you. The first page says, I don't know who will read this. I don't know if my voice matters. I'm so happy when I get to say his voice matters. Part of the tour was to bring a full circle to Tornillo. You get to meet Gerardo. He is the co-author of the book. He's in the book. He helps bring this book to life to you today. That's the power of books. You will get papers on copy. If books were powerful, would so many people be trying to prevent us from happening? If books were not powerful, would so many people be trying to keep us from expressing ourselves? Of course they would. But now we know what's up, so we want to make sure that people have access to this. And then, finally, you're like, some people are going to get for the first time. I can tell this guy's a preacher, a book smuggler, a car salesman, is he mad or happy? Meaning, at the end of the day, you leave with one idea: tell their story. I know that because of all of us, someone in this room is going to tell a story. Oh, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, we're coming back one day soon. And we're going to have $1 million books published. Where are you doing your tour? Someone right now is saying, I'm sorry again. Today, we're going to trigger that last push. You finish the book, and I'm so happy when we all get out to get that published. I'm trying to advertise that to everybody. Okay? People like that. And I tell you that because we've got two beautiful works of art. You may have seen Monday Paper. Liz Advance is the photo of Monday Paper. Liz, where are you? She's also shooting some of our videos. Come on, Liz. She does a lot of our live videos. Round of applause for her for her praise. She's the founder of Monday Paper, which are sustainable journals. These beautiful works of art. Anybody a book journal or a notebook journal? Oh, nice. Okay. So cover. The pages are made of sugarcane. So there's like, I thought sugarcane paper would be rough, very smooth. The ink is soy ink. This is completely sustainable. Additionally, she helped design the Nuestra Palabra notebook. This has our logo on the top. You pull off the band like a cigar, like a fine cigar. And we got to design this. I love the rounded corners. I know I sound like the Home Shopping Network, but that's but I really love this thing. And then when you open the cover, the first line in there, this is our mantra. It says, tell your story. This is what it's about. When you get this, regálalo. Take it home. Put it in someone's hands. Because your story deserves to be told in something beautiful as it waits for publication. And I tell you what, too, when you fill it, come to us. And maybe next time we come through, we'll go through this. If it's visual art, we'll create a companion piece to something. If it's a poem, maybe Tammy and you read next time. as it gets ready to publication, ¿verdad? So, and here's the last cool thing. And I'm going to ask Tammy to come up and thrill us. Here's the last cool thing. At the end of the day, we are all working profoundly in many ways, no? Because that's really what we're about. Any one of these things is kind of cool, but teaming up with y'all, I know we can inspire each other. And just like a little later, my dear friend now, Ivan, who brought your whole round of applause for his family. His family's with him. They're awesome. Y'all have accompanied him throughout Texas, which is awesome. You know, we become fast friends because of the corazón and passion he has. I can see how he inspired Dee to tell his story when the odds seemed insurmountable. Like that today, lo estamos animando. So nah, I'm not angry. I'm a happy Chicano because we're changing the world together. And on that note, how about we unleash the muses? Y'all ready to unleash the muses through some poetry? Y'all ready for some poetry? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so jealous that you have her here every single day of the year. When I met her about 2 decades ago, performing with La Palabra at the San Antonio International Book Festival, first I heard the lyrics, then the sound, and I said, are those the angels performing? Is that a Floricanto echo from the Chicano movement of the 70s? Or is that the downest hermana that I've ever met thrilling San Antonio? That's all summed up in the name Tammy Gomez. Tammy, please come up here. See you. I'm going to get Rodrigo a little time to, and I'm going to get off the stage. I'm going to give you that. So that mic's the room, but it's also for the live stream. And I'm going to give Rodrigo a second to get you in the shot so that all of our friends watching from home can get a sense of the performance. You want her to stand right here, Rodrigo? Right here? Más o menos? Okay, perfect. Perfect. We have a live studio audience. Y'all a good audience. Yeah, round of applause for yourselves. All right, Tim, I'm going to get out your way.
Good evening, everybody. How are you doing so far here on Jefferson? The beloved, legendary Jefferson, which should stay just as it is or was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And, you know, there's so much beautiful to save here. And I hope some of you who live in Dallas are working on doing that, right? My name is Tammy Gomez. I use my middle name because there's another Tammy Gomez Poeta here in Texas. So, you know, I don't want to get mistaken for that person. And I have already. Which was very sweet because a little middle school student of yours, Greg Johnson, wanted to interview me for one of her class projects. And when she said, I read some of your poetry online, I'm sorry about your son. I said, I don't have a son. So it turned out she was reading another Tammy Gomez's work. So hence Tammy Melody Gomez. This first piece is in the persona or the voice of a Mexican laborer who could be somebody who stands outside the Home Depots trying to find work or wherever they might stand. In my city in Forward, they stand on Hemphill Street or maybe near McCart and Alta Mesa, lo que sea, wherever they can find safety and maybe a job. Invisible. I was poor but visible there, and now I am poor and invisible here. But here I get paid. From the check cashing center where I sacrificed 10% in order to stay anonymous, I walked back to my apartment house passed by the shiny big trucks driven by proud American citizens, fathers who carry their children to stories in church. With hardly a thought, they can drive to the job site and show their sons the big machines and the construction lots, the ones they operate 5 days of the week. I wish for that possibility, like the fool that I am, knowing that my own children across the border will never know the fruit of my labor, see the tiles that I've laid, the dishes I've washed, the meals that I've cooked, the ditches I've dug. I am poor and invisible here, without even the means to shop in the very places that I've built from the ground up. You can see me, and others like me, laboring under pressure and constant deadline to raise these temples of the wealthy, their condos and mansions and malls, and that is the only time that we are visible on their turf. We are not welcome once the work is all done, and our small labor wages make it impossible to be a customer there anyhow. We leave like the cockroaches when the light is turned on, and if we are chased and found in its glare, it is certain that migra or chota will come. So I remain invisible, huddled in the darkness of the country shadows, trying to find sleep and solace until the next shift begins, another day of work, to walk like a ghost in a land that breaks promises and does not let me have my life in visibility, except for one thing: the money I earn, the money I send home for children and wife. That money is not invisible. It is the final proof of my entire existence in this land of not seeing. This next piece is in the voice of a little girl who lives near the Texas-Mexico border. And it's based on a story that my friend Patricia Green, who lives in Tepoztlan, she's from Mexico City and lives in Tepoztlan now. She told me about a church near the border where when the migrants happen to stop there, they are offered a pair of new shoes. Because often by the time they get there, they have already walked so many miles and their shoes are worn thin and maybe they're barefooted. This one, you imagine a little girl sitting in a church, kind of like y'all are arrayed here in front of me, and she's sitting kind of in the middle, and she's curious and she looks around. During Misa, sometimes you get a little bored and your eyes wander and you're looking and you're thinking thoughts. This is in her voice. Y con tu espíritu, y con tu espíritu. Our voices swell in unison as we rise to our feet. The priest is giving the final blessing. It is 10:30 on a Sunday morning. Mothers hold fast their children's hands, breathing with sweat on their necks. It is too early to be so hot, flushed with thought. Y con tu espíritu. His hand is beckoning, and this propels the altar boys to set down their chiming bells and to glide over in front of the table where there is a wooden box to open. It is strange how pivotal movements and moments somehow become quiet. At least in my memory, I'll remember them this way. So silent, our secret to keep with mouths that agree. The priest begins a new talk with a different tone of voice. It is no longer the prayer of Mass, the prelude to communion, the call to forgive. He brings his hands together and talks about common good, common man, looking beyond the pews where we sit and far past the doors of this church. He speaks more words: safe harbor and flight towards justice. I think of boats and doves, flying, floating things in gorgeous skies of blue, water of azure. Y con tu espíritu. It is always dusty here, in the air, in my mouth. When the light pours in through the stained glass window of Veronica wiping the face of Jesus, the dust in the church becomes illuminated. Why can dirty things always seem to be seen so clearly? Sometimes it is just one, but today there are 4 who rise from the pews, hunched up in their shoulders as if they carry a coffin. But I think they are only holding their fear. The priest opens the lid of the box as the 4 men move forward, looking at me and my mother and whoever is looking back at them, wondering their names and their destinies. He pulls out the shoes, the priest, 2 pairs at a time, showing their sizes and colors. I know which one I would like to wear. and run around him like a flying bird. The men pick out sizes that'll manage for their trip. As the priest says, they're crossing La Línea tonight. He moves his hand in the air, making another kind of cross, the kind that helps people, makes them feel safe. Y con tu espíritu. I wonder why the men do not smile. I was taught to smile whenever there is a gift received. Maybe they are looking at the windows, wishing for Veronica to wipe their faces too. Or maybe they're deciding which they will become tonight. A swift, moving boat on a cloudless night, or a graceful dove gliding the azure sky. And because I've known people who've crossed and people who've survived crossings, I'm reading this one about Jose. It's titled Jose on the Tracks. Jose on the tracks, headed north on a train in a car, which is new, with reclining seats, FM radio, and factory air, that he cranks up all the way to Texas. That is how he crossed. Imagínate. So he was basically on one of those brand new cars coming on the train. He put the seat back real low. I'll read one more. Thank you so much to the Oak Cliff Cultural Center for hosting us here. Rafael Tamayo and his crew of wonderful associates here. This is a wonderful space for liberation and great communal sharing of thought and idea and visual beauty. Thank you to Nuestra Palabra, my buddies, Tony Diaz, etc., all the folks that have come along with you to create this beautiful thing. Houston born, but you have your sights beyond Houston, as you see here tonight. Thank you for being here. This last piece, which I wrote in October 2016, is about me standing in the San Antonio Greyhound bus station. And I was in a hurry to get back to Fort Worth on my bus. But this happened. Anyone ever been in the Greyhound bus station in San Antonio? Yes. I stand, it's titled This Journey. I stand in line D at the Greyhound station, among others, heading to Fort Worth by way of Waco. We know what that looks like on a map, right? You know, we're there, Tejanos, we know that drive. The precise stretch of I-35 that will be traveled, the probability of traffic snags and brief bathroom breaks along the way. So when she hands me her ticket book, with an expectant look on her face, I realize she has no idea where she is heading. There is no map in her mind, nothing from memory to help her assign probabilities and levels of dread to this journey. I noticed then for the first time that there are two other women, mothers accompanying minors, in that same line. Line B for bust, beleaguered, between worlds. I pull the passbook from her tiny hand and read aloud, translating into Spanish, but leaving some words cold English in order to prepare her for inevitabilities of confusion. First, you will go to Dallas. There, you have a long break. Has anybody been to the Dallas Greyhound station on Commerce? Yeah, okay. There, you have a long break, almost 7 hours. Stay inside the station, especially at night. Es un poco peligroso afuera. It's a little risky at night if you're outside. Then I flipped the ticket pages quickly. You will go to Kansas. Kansas? That's where you're heading. Wait, there's another page. Oh, es muy largo tu viaje. Your trip is going to be very long. You're going to Minnesota. Her face lights up, reminding me of one of Bob Barker's lucky contestants on The Price is Right. Vas a pasar muchas horas en el bus y tu destino es en el norte de los Estados Unidos, acerca de Canadá. You're going to spend many hours on the bus, and Your destination will be in the northern U.S., near Canada. Her son, possibly 11 years old, smiles and nods. I am the announcer of the grand prize, the unintended conveyor of critical information. And, of course, she has not chosen any of this. She is from El Salvador, with desperate hope in her eyes, yet there is no certainty in her destiny. Thank you. And when I found that out and I asked her if she had money, I said, you're going to be taking breaks. You be careful. Don't let the bus leave you. She goes, we're not going to get off the bus. I said, but you're going to Minnesota. You can't be on the bus the entire time. They have breaks. You have money. Maybe she had $5. And I told the people in line behind me, line D, and they were Puerto Ricans, the one behind me, so they understood Spanish. I said, you need to talk to these people. Do you have any cash? Please. The guy gave her a 20. Like, oh, gosh. And I thought, can I call Dallas people right now and ask them to be at the Greyhound station to meet with comida, a change of clothes, something like that, and that's the kind of feeling that I want to keep holding. It's a sense of urgency about people I've just met, the ones who are merely trying to exist and to love and to work and to be close with their family. I'm so happy that Iván is here to present this book, and saludos, respect for all that you've done to labor for that moment of being here. Thank you. Gracias. I'm done.
Thank you very much for being so generous with your brilliance, Tammy. Let's give her another round of applause, please. And she had a piece on workers, so she works too. She works hard for the community. Tomorrow, she's actually performing at the first annual Texas Monthly Taco Fest there at Grand Epic Central. I want to mention too that Nuestra Palabra has curated the art and culture. So you're going to hear Clave H3 perform tomorrow. Bo Bundy will be performing, and we're going to have a bunch of books there. You're going to see Jose Relat there as well. Speaking of workers, if you buy copies of Monday paper journals, that creates jobs in Venezuela, right? So again, it's all layered one after the other. And also, I want to give another shout out to Oak Cliff Cultural Center. Thank you for rolling out the red carpets for us. It really is like having friends and family in each of these long cities. And when we get here, it's a little tough on the road, you get a ticket now and then, you're like, bummer. But when we get here y nos juntamos con ánimo, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I also, when we talk about the workers, the Nuestra Palabra team, I mentioned, I think, did you all applaud Clarissa Zubia, who's our operations manager? She's out there doing the books. And it was mentioned earlier, your name is Ryan? Brian, right? Brian was the first person here today. Round of applause for that. Because Chicano time means on time. So that was awesome. He was like, but he saw us setting up. Not glamorous to set up, And Rodrigo Bravo helps us get the live streams going, the books set up. So a lot of behind the scenes stuff. He doesn't always get it from the camera because he wants to give other people their voice. He was so affected, so touched by the book, Detained, that I really want him to share some of those insights. He really said we need to do everything we can. And moments where I'm like, Vato, El Paso, Vato, está lejos. He goes, we gotta do it. I'm like, all right, we can do it. Please welcome El Mero Mero, Rodrigo Bravo.
So Tony mentioned a little bit about what we do, and the reason I wanted to share kind of what I read in the book was really important because there's so many different facets of it where I think it kind of models the behavior that we all should take. One of the most interesting parts that I took from the book was how we're watching a child receive trauma. It's not something that when we saw all this happening on CNN, MSNBC, whatever channel you choose, whatever it is, You see the blankets, right? The aluminum foil blankets back in 2018, and you see that, but there's still a distance there between our experience and their experience. So we start to normalize the negligence and the trauma that happens to our children. And so when you see that back then, I said, man, that's terrible. But when you read a firsthand account of a child, and the book that you're reading reads like a child, it's not Ivan or an editor that transcribed what a child wrote. No, they literally just verbatim, pretty much, cleaning up here a little bit, but it's what a child wrote. And you see that and you read that, and it just really impacts you much more. I'll share one particularly facet of the book that really pained me. They're still in Honduras, and they come to realize that their dog died. And I had a dog. How many of y'all are pet owners or have had a pet in your life, right? And we love our pets, right? We cherish them, right? We love them. I accidentally fostered 2 cats now. I don't even know how that happened, but it happened, right? Yvonne and I were talking about our cat daddy struggles, if you will, But my dog was Blackie. He was a Newfoundland. Who knows what Newfies are? Newfoundlands. Okay, they're really like Canadian dogs, named after the province Newfoundland. And they have thick black coats. Poor dog was in the South Texas heat with that big, thick black coat. But he was an amazing dog. And I remember one time we were coming back from Mexico. I would spend my summers in Mexico. And I was coming back with my dad, and it was late on the drive. And out of nowhere, it just popped to me and said, "Hey, how's Blackie doing?" And my dad's one of those macho guys. He's prototypical. Guy has his shirt open, he's got gold chains, rings, everything. Mi palabras a la ley kind of guy, And he shed a tear and he said, "No, murió Blackie." And it pained me, And so when I'm reading this book and I hear about how D and his cousin, was really his brother, but his cousin, and how that affected them, I cried. And it was really sad because I realized, as Tony had mentioned earlier, how we have citizenship privilege. I was born 200 miles north of the river. D was born 1,000 miles south of the river. And it was completely the same circumstance, the same pain, and honestly, the same heartfelt emotion, but just on different sides of that river. And so when he says, like, you know what, that's it. I don't have anything else to live for. I'm going over there. I can't imagine me being at that age, having that trauma, having that hurt, and then making that decision. So then going forward, when you read the book, last 2 points or last 2 insights in the book, because I want you to buy the book, right? I don't want to just tell you the whole book. But one of the rooms that they call it La Perrera. So just think about that when you have a facility where the guards and the people, the administrators, are calling a specific part of the facility a dog pound. And he's wondering, like, why do they call it La Perrera? And you read it in real time when you're reading the book, he realizes we're the dogs. And it's messed up. Kids shouldn't have to go through that, right? And then another part of the facility itself, there's a place called La Hielera. And you would think, okay, La Hielera, probably cold, right? We saw those blankets, right, when we were watching the news. You don't know how cold it really is. And you read the book, and he's talking about we're shivering. We're walking through the corridors where the guards are at. It feels fine. But then when they enter the space where they're occupying it, it's freezing cold. That's by design. And so when you read that and you really get his perspective on that, you end up realizing how traumatic this entire experience is. So my final point, though, and the one that I really wanted to leave y'all with, is it's so important that we do what we can. Tammy just shared a beautiful story earlier, right? About somebody just saying, "Give me $20," something very small, and maybe something that's just kind of like an afterthought at some point. But for that person, it was impactful. They needed that at that moment. Tony, I've seen Tony done so many good things where he uplifts other people through our platform. We've had shows where we had Sandra Cisneros, a worldwide icon. And then the next week, we have somebody that has maybe 300 followers on Instagram. Because we uplift everybody through our platform. That's what we want to do. We want to tell everybody's story. And then you have Yvonne. And again, I can't stress enough how important it is that folks like Yvonne do what they can at the moment that they're there, because D had already had other counselors there, and maybe they cared a little bit, maybe they didn't care, maybe they didn't know what to do, etc. But at some point, the kids need hope, and Iván was there to give the Esperanza hope. And as Tony had said, like, he wrote this journal, he didn't know who's going to read it. But when Iván wrote it, he said, no, keep writing, keep telling your story, because you never know who's going to read it. But I feel like everybody needs to read it. And I'll end with this note. Just think about this. Here's a child, 13 years old, separated from family, makes the journey from Honduras through Mexico to El Paso, and seeking asylum, and is now a published writer with one of the big New York publishing houses. Like, that's the American dream right there. The one that we're always kind of throwing out there, right? That's somewhat elusive. Well, he's actually doing it, but that's because he was able to tell his story. So I encourage everybody here that if you have a story to tell, or if you know somebody that has a story to tell, if they've gone through something and they don't know, I don't know, I'm scared, writing this and that, do it. Of course, I want you to buy a journal, right? but even if you don't do that, start at home with a notepad and start writing. Start telling that story. You never know what you may end up telling, but more important, you will never know who you may impact. And so with that last kind of thought, I just want to give one round of applause again for Iván, because he's going to come up here and he's going to talk and he's going to tell you everything that happened and whatnot. But again, he was the vessel. He was the one that made this happen. And so as we conclude this tour, I calculated it. I've driven over 3,400 miles across the state of Texas. And I'm really happy that Dallas showed out. Really happy that we're all here and that we're doing it. Yes, that we're spreading literature, that we're spreading the word, but more importantly, that someone told their story. And now here we are making sure that story counts. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo, and appreciate you giving those heartfelt words. And look he becomes a presenter. Now he's got to run back and run the cameras también, ¿verdad? I mean, that's why I appreciate everything that he does for our movement, for our community. And just to give you a little bit of directions as we bring up Ivan. So he's going to come up here and speak from this spot. We're getting the cameras ready for that. And then afterwards, we're going to have a little bit of a dialogue and a chance for a few questions. And then once he's finished, he's going to go back there and sign copies of the book. I want to remind you, if you do purchase copies of the book, you will get you'll be entered in a raffle, and 2 folks tonight will win 2 pairs of tickets to tomorrow's Taco Fest. Of course, we don't want you to feel bad, so we do have a secret discount code. So if you don't win, you can still put in NP25 to get 25% off if you don't happen to win those tickets. And we will say the winner has to be present. So that'll be afterwards. However, right now, I really want to welcome someone that's made it worth every single one of those miles to travel, because he has given his time and energy to bring the story to light. And it's destiny. Several years ago, there was a young man that was scared. In circumstances I don't know if I could overcome. And he met a young man that would inspire him. It's beautiful in the book as you're reading it, when D hears someone speak to him in Spanish. That's a powerful argument for representation right there. Just that simple act, how far that goes. But he persisted, and he kept inspiring those youth. He inspired this book, and he's going to tell a little bit how he did a lot more after that, without any promise that it would ever get published. But here's the happy ending. The message that Iván is proof of: give your heart, support the community, be true to yourself, be true to our voices, and good things will come from it. Living testament of that. Please welcome someone who I think the world of, who has changed the world, co-author of Detained, Gerardo Iván Morales. Last stop, make them feel at home.
Do we switch? Do I sit over here? Hi, everyone. I'm going to sit down so we can have a nice conversation. I want to first and foremost thank every single one of you for taking the time out of your days, out of your schedule to come out to visit us. Thank you so much to the Oak Cliff Cultural Center here in Dallas, Texas. We are here at our 5th and final stop of the Detained Tour, hosted by the one, the only Nuestra Palabra, your favorite bookstore. And so I just want to say thank you to Nuestra Palabra. We have been in the best hands with people that truly demonstrate what it is to live your life in radical solidarity with those, by living your life with actions and deeds. So a lot of people here like, oh, I'm there for you, I'm here for solidarity, but solidarity is more than just telling someone you're there for them. It's about showing it with how you live your life. How are you living your life, and what are your actions doing in order to show others that you're there for them? And so this book is that opportunity for representation. Representation is so important right now, specifically when we have such a diverse and beautiful community of immigrants and people who are from all different backgrounds. And so this book is for anyone and everyone that's facing any sort of adversity, anything, any trial that you're overcoming in your life, anything that you feel completely broken by, because anything and everything that you could imagine happened to Esperanza. And he went through a 5-month harrowing journey to get to the United States. And then another 5 months of uncertainty being detained in the United States. And so he overcame so many obstacles that I frankly probably don't even know if I would have been able to. And so when I met these children, when I met Esperanza, they embodied true resilience and hope and desire for a better and more dignified life. And even with all of the trauma they had come with, they had so much desire and excitement for a better future. And so I would tell them, you guys are my superheroes. I look at you and I feel like I can overcome anything. And so that is the message of this story. We were able to release it a week ago in El Paso. So we're celebrating a week of releasing Detained in the place where it started. And so last week was a really powerful experience, being back to where it all started. So I want to take you guys back to the summer of 2018 to give you guys a little context on how this book came to be and let you know how we started this journey. So the summer of 2018, when we were all hearing about kids in cages and the horrific family separations that were taking place at the border, that was my call to take action. Like, I could not sit back and watch my beautiful and diverse immigrant community be torn apart. And then when I saw the images of this child detention center that was nicknamed a Texas tent city, to me, that was the most shocking reality. Like, this is what's taking place at our border with children. And so my first day was Friday the 13th, July 2018. And so a lot of people have this idea that Friday the 13th tend to be an unlucky day. But for me, it turned out to be my luckiest day and a day that changed my life forever. It was the day that I was first inside of the child detention center, and I was assigned to Alpha 13. Alpha 13 was a tent in the middle of the desert that housed 20 children, all from different ages, ranging from 11 to 17, from different parts of Central America who were seeking asylum. So this is the category of children that we are keeping in these detention centers. Asylum-seeking children from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, And so when I had the opportunity of meeting Esperanza, he was the most talented and gifted child. He was extremely outgoing and talkative, and all these children were looking was for somebody who would speak to them, who would talk to them, who would give them that attention. Unfortunately, they're left in the care of unqualified personnel. And so another chapter of trauma is added to their stories while they're in the care and custody of the United States. And so when I first got there, I met Esperanza along with 19 other children in Alpha 13. And when I was walking by his bunk bed, he was writing in this black and white composition notebook that I brought here with me. So this is Esperanza's actual composition notebook that he wrote in while being detained. Inside, he wrote the most powerful poem. He calls it a rap because it's written in Spanish and it rhymes. It's really powerful. And when I walked by his bunk bed and he was writing in his composition notebook, I asked him, I said, "Hey, D, what are you up to?" And his face lit up. He was so excited to share with me. He said, "Hey, do you want to read my rap?" And of course, I was honored. I was like, of course, I want to read your rap. And when I read this poem, and I mean, it comes in to celebrate poetry. And again, thank you, Tammy, for your beautiful poems and for giving us that ability of self-expression, because art is the human experience and the human experience expressing ourselves. And so it's a very powerful, universal thing that connects us all. And so when I read this poem titled Somos Inmigrantes, We Are Immigrants, talking about jumping on top of trains, talking about days of starvation, talking about the treacherous journey to get to the United States, the dangerous cities that they pass, the cartels, the violence, the murder. I was in complete awe that Esperanza, at 13, 14 years old, was able to capture the entire immigrant experience in such a powerful and emotional way. It brought me to tears. I was genuinely crying when I read it here. And I told him, you are extremely talented and you need to continue writing, continue sharing your story because it matters. And that goes with today's theme again, about telling your story, because you don't know the kind of impact that it will have one day. And so I told him, I said, write about your time being detained, write about your time being on your journey to get to the United States, write it all. And he continued. To my very much surprise, he continued writing. And weeks went by, and then he came up to me one day and he showed me his composition notebook. And I mean, I brought it here with me, and I'll show it to you guys later if you want to come look. But you have pages and pages of him sharing his entire story in his handwriting. And that is what Detained is. So Detained is a direct translation of D. Esperanza's entire composition notebook, translated it into English from his hands to your hands. And this journey could have not been possible had it not been that every single person that we encountered was the right person. When he wrote this composition notebook while being detained, I was completely shocked. When I saw it, I was like, this is powerful, it's beautiful. And the fact that you actually listened to what I told you to write, I was really moved by it, but that was the extent of that experience. And I spent 6 months inside of that child detention center. Esperanza was released sometime in September. So after 5 months of him being detained, he was released. And then years went by and we reconnected again when he was an adult. And I told him, I'm like, I still to this day think about that poem, think about your story. And he told me he still had his composition notebook. And I asked him, I said, would you be open to me translating your poem into English and looking for some way to get this story published so that we can have that representation? And without a doubt, like, he was on board. He wanted to be able to share his story. He wanted to help the thousands of children that are to this day still being detained and are being silenced, because over 100,000 unaccompanied minors come to the United States every single year seeking asylum, and no one knows their stories until today. And this is the first ever memoir written by a child. My experience in this, I am just the co-author, so I have a note at the end. You'll meet me through Esperanza. He talks about our encounter and when we met. And for me, my role here was just, how do we get this story published? And I put my trust in God. I literally put my trust in God, and I said, help us get to the largest possible platform. And without having any experience or any idea on how to get a book published, we were able to find our home with Simon & Schuster. And Simon & Schuster is one of the biggest publishing houses in the country. And that was thanks to our incredible literary agent. And so every step of the way, we found incredible people. We wouldn't be here without our incredible agent, Adriana Dominguez, our incredible editor from Simon & Schuster, who now has her own imprint. So that's a huge celebration. Now we're celebrating 1 year, a little over 1 year of Primer Sueño imprint from Simon & Schuster, an imprint that is for us. It is for our community. It represents our voice, our stories in the community. And so we really were in the best hands. And these past 5 cities, we've been traveling all over Texas. And I will tell you that Rodrigo and Clarissa and Tony, they have done it with a smile on their face, with so much passion and dedication. And it probably has been my favorite part, just getting to know them and having this story bring together even more of our community together. And so I encourage all of you to read Detained, to share Detained with friends and family, because the more people know about it, the more we can unite and be this radical solidarity to protect the children. Because ultimately, when it comes to the conversation about immigration, there's so many narratives going on about who we are as immigrants. And so for me, it was very important to be that representation and to be that portrayal, because we are here and we unite, and together we can accomplish anything. And Esperanza right now, like Rodrigo mentioned earlier, he's living the American dream. He started writing a book when he was 13, not knowing if his story was going to be heard. And fast forward 7 years later, and he's a published author, and he's a father now. And he's 21, he's a father, he's got a beautiful family, and he is able to have that security because of this book and to live a life that he unfortunately did not have the opportunity to. And so he was robbed of his childhood, of his innocence. And so are so many of these unaccompanied minors who are just seeking asylum. Like, the reality is, in their home countries, they are in poverty, they're in danger of gang violence, and Esperanza's only hope was to come to the United States. And as you will see in Detained, he really did not expect what actually his reality was when he got to the United States. He was looking for asylum. He was looking for safety. He was looking for a place that would take care of him. And instead, he reached a place that dehumanized him. And while they were in the care and custody of the United States, these children, they lose their identity. They're referred to as bed numbers instead of their names. And they all are wearing name tags with their picture. They're assigned bed number. They're assigned part of the detention center. And unfortunately, they're in the hands of people who are not qualified to be taking care of these children. And so instead of being their name, they'll be referred to as Cama 12, silencio, Cama 12, ven aquí, Cama 12, reporte. And that's their reality. Threats are used to keep these children in line. They don't even have an opportunity to play or let themselves be children because they're threatened by these reports. And to these children, when I first got there, I witnessed these things firsthand. I was there and I saw it, and it was really shocking to see that they truly believe, these children truly believe that a reporte would result in their deportation. So they literally were in fear that if I misbehave, if I do anything that upsets the people that are watching, I could be deported. And for Esperanza, 5 months of coming to the United States, of not even knowing if he was going to make it to the United States, all for that to be endangered or risked by somebody who was threatening him with a reporte. And so for me, my role and my mission was to give them knowledge, because knowledge is power. And the more you know, the less you fear. And these kids are kept in the dark. It's part of the system, unfortunately. Like, a lot of the transfers happen in the middle of the night. And so these children are awakened in the middle of the night and they're told, pack up your things and let's go. They're not even given an opportunity to say goodbye to their friends who they had been there experiencing this with. And so that's another thing you'll read in Detained. And I think that Detained, it's a hard story. It really is. It has really hard subject matter, but it's also a story of hope, of resilience, and about coming together. These children were from El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and they all came together and created a brotherhood, a bond. And every time one child would leave, they would leave behind a goodbye letter where they would tell their other companions, I'm praying for you. Your day will come. Your time to be released will come. Thank you for being here with me. I'm sorry if I ever hurt your feelings. I will never forget you. And this became part of the tradition because they weren't even given an opportunity to say goodbye to each other. And so I encourage every single one of you to join this movement, because we are stronger together. Juntos somos más fuertes. And together we can unite to change these policies that are keeping these children in these detention centers in such a horrific manner. Thank you.
It's fantastic. Let's give Ivan another round of applause for being so brave, for getting that story out. I do want to make sure you've got time to meet Ivan, get your copy of his book, get it signed. But I did want to give someone a chance to ask. We'll take one question. Does anyone have anyone burning to ask a question? You kind of raised your hand. No, I was not. It's like, I not only not have a question, because how about this then? Because I take it you're all excited about meeting him in person, getting your book signed. He'll be signing books right back there. You can get the book. You can purchase the book over there. You still have a chance to get into the drawing for the 2 raffle tickets, pairs of tickets to tomorrow's Taco Fest, and then you can take pictures with Ivan. But I do want folks to know one quick thing. He is a scholar. So people have been conning our youth into believing reading and writing don't matter. They do. D is an example of it. And I want people to understand your intellectual pedigree. Obviamente eres uno de nosotros. But do me a favor, let folks know what you are studying and what you've accomplished.
So currently, right now, I am working on my master's program at St. Mary's University in theology. And it was thanks to this, thank you. It was thanks to this experience, and it was thanks to meeting Esperanza and these children, which pushed me back to theology. And so for me, being able to finish my higher education has been a journey. It's been a lot longer than I would have liked. And I think that for a long time, I felt like that was unfair. Like, I wish I would have had the 4-year education. And if that would have been my reality, then I wouldn't be in Texas. And so the reason that I came out to Texas originally was so I could pursue in a higher education, and St. Mary's has been an incredible instrumental part of that journey. And currently, I went back. I got my bachelor's in theology after my experience with the children, and I'm currently doing my master's program in theology. But my theology is specifically moral theology. So with moral theology it's faith-seeking action. So how are you living your life according to your faith in your actions? How are you doing that? And so for me, I'm moved by my faith to be with the children, to be an advocate for the children, and to continue advocating for human rights for our immigrant community. And so that's where my passion comes from. And I want to thank the people, the educators that I've encountered in my experience. And so Tony had the opportunity of sharing the story with his class, and that was a huge honor for me to get to talk to students who read the story and wrote essays on the story, on Esperanza's journey. And having that opportunity for me was really beautiful, to be able to connect with other students. And St. Mary's right now is going to be including the book in their curriculum in the fall. And so we are doing the most we can to have this story in the best representation so that we can truly make change.
I love it. So I know you're eager to meet Ivan, so I'm going to let you do that. However, I will say this. I know all of you are ready to buy a copy of the book. I need you to buy more. Because at the end of the day, this is a movement. Every book you buy helps a Latino writer, a Latino publisher, helps us continue to give back to the community. And we're here to spread books wide. And we're doing it. We want to be your favorite bookstore, but we're not just like any bookstore. We are creating sources for our community. So here's what's going on. We are so happy that St. Mary's is buying 200 copies of Detained to teach it in their classrooms. Okay? That's what's going on. Harris County is going to be buying 50 copies of his book to help teens in Harris County as well. I was honored to teach his book in my class. Of course, if you go to community college in Houston, Texas, most of the students are Black and Latino. I bring books that reflect their backgrounds. I had students come up to me when I assigned the book. They either call me Professor Librotraficantes, some call me Mister. It's like, Mister, I was dreading reading this book. I read it in one night. I'm like, I've never read a book in one night. This is what happens when our youth read books about them by folks that they can connect with. Additionally, when you're purchasing the book, you're going to see our QR code. We're trying to raise a classroom set for the high school in Las Vegas, as well as underground libraries throughout Texas and overground libraries that are next door to the schools that we can't get into because of different laws right now. So with that, though, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. And if you're within the sound of my voice, you are now a Librotraficante. So thank you very much.